And this is just an opportunity to make sure everybody's signed in. Yes, we have over 50 people. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate that you are all incredibly busy and your time is very valuable. So we're hugely excited that you're considering putting in an application to the Tech to Unite Us Fund, and we hope this morning's presentation will be useful to you. So if I can just sort of start explaining audio and chat again very briefly, because we're expecting a large number of delegates, unfortunately we can't have everybody with mics and cameras, so we've had to disable those. But if you'd like to interact, if you're having any kind of technical issues and need those resolving, or if you have any questions about the presentation as we go on, please do use the chat window. It's in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. I'm talking away here, but I'm actually joined by a number of my colleagues this morning, Annie Radel, Amy Ryan, Kathy Marcham, and Charlotte Knight. They're all on the chat window. They'll also be jumping at the presentation at key points. But yeah, any questions, do please put them into the chat window. As I said earlier, we'll be sharing all the slides from this morning. We're recording this. We are also hosting an additional webinar. We were going to be doing two, of which this was the second one, but due to popular demand, we'll be doing another one Thursday next week. So if you have any friends or colleagues who are interested in this funding round but weren't able to make this morning, do obviously please feel free to share the slides with them when you get the link, but also do alert them to the fact that we're having an additional webinar next week. So very briefly, the agenda for this morning, I'll be giving a presentation for about 25 minutes. We'll look to finish at 11 o'clock on that, and then that will give us plenty of time for question and answers. Again, please use the chat window for any questions that you have. We'll try and answer as many of them as possible in today's session. If, however, you feel we get to the end of today's session and we've not been able to answer your question or not to your satisfaction, do please contact us. It's on our email address, which is hello@socialtechtrust.org, and we will endeavour to answer your queries as quickly as possible. So, just to say a little bit about today's session, this week saw the launch of our new funding programme, Innovate Social Tech, and our first funding round, Tech to Unite Us. And this is a pre-application workshop for organisations who are interested in applying to our funding round. There's two main purposes for this morning's presentation. The first one is to help you decide if this funding round is right for your organisation. It may be after today's presentation you think that actually you don't fit and it's not right. I mean, that's sad in a way, but again, we appreciate just how busy you are and how valuable your time is. And if this morning helps you decide that actually this isn't the right funding round for you, then we'd rather that you realise that and made that decision at this stage. The second purpose is that if you do decide to apply, we want you to put in the very best application that you can, one that stands every chance of success and allows you to articulate your ideas in a way that we will be able to understand fully. So those are the two purposes this morning, and I'll get on with the presentation. So first thing is to say a little bit about Social Tech Trust. Our purpose is to transform lives with tech, and our vision is one where where social transformation is the driving force behind technology. The internet has revolutionized our world. The Social Tech Trust exists to ensure that this ongoing tech revolution delivers a positive and fair social impact. Realizing that when lives are transformed by tech, that they can be transformed for the better. One of the things that we're sort of trying to do is really make social transformation the driving force behind technology, not a sort of a second afterthought, but the thing that really drives and shapes technology. It's there from the very beginning. And we want to make sure that when tech has been created right from the outset, that human need, human behaviour, social need is right there as a primary consideration. What we do is identify where technology has the greatest potential to transform lives, and then we back the people and the organizations to demonstrate what's possible. So building on the knowledge that we've developed over several years, we seek out and join, join forces with a whole range of creative organizations and partners to kind of build an environment that really allows for the creation of socially motivated technology. Just say a little bit about our background. We were established 10 years ago as the corporate foundation of the .uk domain registry Nominet. Over the last 10 years, our work has benefited over 10 million people, and we supported 750 socially motivated tech initiatives in the UK, providing over £30 million of funding. This is a huge, exciting year for us, and a very exciting new funding round, because this is the year in which we have become an independent foundation, now known as the Social Tech Trust, and we are continuing to provide grant funding and support to ventures that are looking to use technology to transform lives. This slide and the next couple of slides after it just explain a little bit about how we operate. And one of the things we've realized is that in order to realize the full social potential of technology actually requires quite a multifaceted approach. So whilst our funding is kind of core part of what we do, it's part of a much wider package, which again is all designed to create an environment and an ecology where technology can realize its true social potential. And you'll sort of see, as this slide sort of charts briefly our history, our approach has become more sophisticated, more interconnected over time. As again, over 10 years, we've really learned a lot about what makes for effective social tech ventures, but also what makes for an effective and enabling environment. One of the key things we do is lead a conversation. We have a sister website, which I highly recommend people to go and visit if you've not yet had a chance. And this is the socialtechguide.org.uk. So that's socialtechguide.org.uk. And for years, we've been researching the application of technology to address a whole range of social challenges globally. And we've collected now over 1,500 examples of what we think are the most exciting and promising applications of social technology on the Social Tech Guide. Last year was a big year for us because what we've done in previous years was pick out what we called the NT100, what we thought that year were the 100 most exciting applications that we'd seen. Last year was our 5th year, and it was a great chance really to kind of look at this huge body of research and information to really kind of pick out what we saw as the kind of the key trends and the key insights that were emerging globally. This resulted in a report, Transforming Lives with Tech, a Global Conversation, which is available on our website. It's very accessible, it's very readable. Again, along with the Social Tech Guide, I highly recommend people take the time to have a look at it. It's also very useful, again, if you're looking to apply to us for funding, because it gives you a bit of an insight into what we think is exciting social tech, what we think are kind of the key trends, the key insights. Kind of an opportunity to kind of get into our thinking, our head slightly. Another resource we've produced recently, which again has been fantastically successful and very well received, is our first podcast series. This is called Our Lives Plus Tech. It's available, for example, on the iTunes podcast store. And again, it really, if you want to kind of get into our heads, what are we thinking about? What do we see as the kind of the real key trends emerging in social technology? The podcast series is a really exciting and again really quick, digestible way into our current thinking. It's widely available. So that's Our Lives Plus Tech. But as I mentioned earlier, our core activity is funding. Sorry, just saw your question, Laurie. I think one of my colleagues will put the title of the podcast in, but it will be in the notes as well with the slide notes. So our main kind of activity over the last 10 years has been grant making and supporting, as I said, over 750 social tech initiatives. On this slide are just a few, and again, some of them you might well have heard of: Big White Wall, WeFarm, Open Bionics. And these are, again, hugely exciting. And of course, what's a great thing now is, given that we've been operating in the space for a number of years, is we're starting to see, for example, with something like WeFarm, ideas that were very early stages of development when they came to us for support and funding that have now grown, spun out, become well-established services, which is amazing. And again, that unlocking that potential of social tech. Also really exciting is that we're kind of just getting that insight and understanding about what actually enables these early stage ideas to kind of grow and realize their full potential, in some cases, international potential. But again, if you go to our website, we have a portfolio page on there, and you can find out a lot more about the projects that we fund. And again, if you also want to do your homework around applying to us, it's a good way of understanding the kind of projects and kind of ventures that we look to support. The other thing is, again, is investing to scale. And one of our core convictions is, as I said, that digital technology has a huge potential to bring social change and social transformation, but also a conviction along with that that potential is a long way from being currently met. And what we really want to see happen over the next few years, indeed the next few months ideally, is more and more social tech ventures starting to scale. And by scale, we mean realizing their full potential, providing a service and reaching all the people that potentially could benefit from that service. We realize we can't do this alone. So again, this is where our partnerships become particularly crucial. So whether that's Bethnal Green Ventures, who are a socially focused tech accelerator, other grant makers such as the Bearing Foundation and Comic Relief, social investors such as Creative England. Fair by Design is a fascinating campaign and investment fund that we've recently become involved with, involving key national partners such as the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, Big Society Capital, Ascension Ventures, the aim of which is to eliminate the poverty premium. So this is the fact that if you are living in poverty, there's a good chance you are actually paying more money than everybody else for key goods and services. Our aim is to support and scale a range of social tech ventures, ensure that in 10 years' time that the poverty premium is no more. And we also work with organisations such as Shift, who work with closely to reduce the progressively tool. And again, that is really about embedding the knowledge and understanding that we've gained over the last 10 years about what enables social tech ventures to access further support, access investment, access users and customers, and to scale. So now specifically on to the Tech to Unite Us programme. I'm just going to take a very brief pause and have a slip of my water before my voice finally croaks. I apologise. Do say in the chat window if I'm croaking a bit and you can't hear me. I shall endeavour to speak a bit more clearly. So, Innovate Social Tech is our new funding programme, and Tech to Unite Us is the first specific funding call that we are doing within that round. So, firstly, about the funding programme as a whole. This is built on a decade of pioneering grant funding, specifically targeted at early stage innovation. As I mentioned before, the grant funding is a kind of key part of what we do, but it's not all that we do. One of the things we realise that is obviously money is hugely important, especially that early stage grant support, but we also provide bespoke technical assistance. That is, it may be support around marketing and communications, it may be support around legal issues such as IP. It may very often be a case of us putting you in contact with a mentor or just somebody who's been through the journey that you're going through but is a few years ahead of you. Somebody who's a peer who's done the journey that you're about to embark upon. And again, our alumni network is incredibly helpful in that respect. And by bespoke, we realised that actually, we're a small team here, but we realise that every venture we support is different. Every venture we support has a particular set of needs that we try and support you with. So specifically about Tech to Unite Us, this is our inaugural £500,000 grant fund, and it aims to demonstrate how tech can reach its transformative potential when it is driven by one of the greatest opportunities and challenges of our time, which is equality. We're living in a unique moment in history where technology is making us more connected and giving us access to more information than ever before, and yielding huge benefits. But there are challenges as well. We realise that potentially digital technology as a whole can divide us. It can lead to inequality and exacerbate both social and economic division. And we feel as if we are at a key juncture, and these fissures, this division that sometimes technology can feed into, we can't go on like this. We have to realise now and start building a technology for the future that unites us, that addresses these fundamental issues of equality. We have to make a digital future that works for everybody and that everybody feels they belong in. And this is going to call for some radical new approaches, and indeed, looking at shifting the balance to power of power to people and communities. And technology, we think, has a key role to play, along with human vision and human courage to sort of bring about these changes. And it's a very ambitious fund in that respect. We're very ambitious in what we're trying to achieve. We don't use the term transformative lightly. Even kind of incremental change, improving services are perfectly laudable aims and very challenging. But we're really looking at seeing this technology that is transforming our lives, that has the potential to do things that we just couldn't imagine 20, 25 years ago. How can we use this in a way that is genuinely transformative? So, who should apply? Well, we're looking for talented and ambitious teams, which I'm guessing you all are, and ventures who are at relatively early stages of their development. Again, for potential for transformative social impact at scale. So again, as well as the transformative ambition, there's an ambition to reach as many people as possible. There's an ambition for growth and sustainability. And again, one of the things we look for is clear plans about not just getting ideas off the ground, but how will this thing kind of develop and grow over time? Because we'll be with you for some of the journey, hopefully more of the journey nowadays, but there need to be clear plans about how this will actually go and support needs over the long term. And how are you using tech to bring us all together and to promote equality? So we encourage your interpretation of this theme. It's quite deliberately quite wide. So imaginative answers are very much encouraged. If you're using tech to increase access or opportunity of quality of outcomes in terms of wealth, health, education, participation, community engagement, or social justice, and you meet our criteria, then you should apply. So I'm just going to give a couple of examples now of organisations that we have funded in the past, who we still have a relationship with, who we think actually are good examples of some of the things we're trying to sort of do now. And one of these is Open Utility, which is very much around democratising power. Again, I'd highly recommend going to their website, looking particularly at their Piccolo platform. And this is a peer-to-peer platform, and the long-term vision, long-term aim is to allow people and communities to take locally generated, often renewable energies, and trade and provide that energy directly to local consumers. So this is kind of putting key power in the figurative and the literal sense back into the hands of communities. The power to kind of create new energy markets and to kind of break some of that monopoly that the sort of the established utility providers currently have. Big White Wall was led by a serial entrepreneur, Jen Hyatt, who we're now working with on her True venture. Big White Wall, again, looks at this kind of key issue of how do you make access to health services, particularly mental health services, equitable? How do you make sure that people are not excluded? The whole issues in health around the postcode lottery, living in rural locations, maybe being in a situation where you can't get physically to centres, the long waiting lists. Mental health is one of the great pressing social challenges of our time, and Big White Wall has been built and is a very good example of a very successful venture that, again, we funded from an early stage to the established kind of position it is in now to provide mental health support services to people whenever and wherever they happen to be. And Open Up Music, again, this is a very good example. The technology at the core of Open Up Music is a thing called the clarion, which you can see there. It's a musical instrument that is designed to be played by anybody, whatever their level of physical ability. So it's a completely accessible musical instrument. But the vision is the big thing. The vision is to create the UK's first fully inclusive national youth orchestra that is open to everybody. And of course, to do this, there's going to have to be regional youth orchestras and then local musical groups that are fully inclusive. Everybody should have the opportunity and the ability and the right to participate in the creation and the performance of art and of music. And that is a vision that they are using technology to help bring about. So we're into some of the details now around eligibility criteria. So first of all, and again, I'll just say that all these notes are going to come out with the presentation, with the slides. Also, this information is all on our website, particularly if you go to the Tech Unitas section under how to apply and look under FAQ. So I'll go through these relatively quickly, but there's plenty of information on our website. If you find at the end you're not sure or you have any questions, again, use a chat window or email us directly and we'll try and answer your questions as best we can. So the first thing is you have to have a social mission, and this has to be written into your organisation's governance. We don't insist on any one particular form, constitutional form for your organisation. You just have to be formally constituted. Quite a common arrangement is we'll have organisations that are registered as private limited companies, but then have a social mission or an explicit social commitment in their objects within their memenards. But also we funded KICs, other organisations, other organisational structures that again kind of bake in that sort of social value. But there are other ways. Again, we're open to sort of different approaches. Some cases we had organisations with kind of golden shares, membership-based, limited by guarantee, maybe even having like a profit redistribution clause. There's not one single answer that's right for everybody, but it needs to be there, and it does need to be in your formal kind of governing document. Potential for transformative social impact at scale. So again, I've mentioned all these things already. This ambition to create something that is generally transformative and something that has clear social goals. So these will be defined by your organisation, your particular vision, but a good example would be something like the kind of global sustainable development goals, some sort of kind of UK government and civil society kind of priorities. What we're really interested in, again, this comes out very clearly in applications, is that you've got a really good understanding of the problem that you're looking to address. So it's not just kind of a sort of immediately remedial thing. There's a real attempt and a real depth of understanding about addressing the kind of the root causes of problems. You understand the space that you operate in, who the key players are, and an ambition to scale. So again. We believe that digital technology has this huge potential. It's not realised, and what we really want to do is start seeing social tech ventures growing, becoming well known. In some cases where it's relevant, household names. And we want to see this because we want to see that technology reach as many people as possible. But we also genuine conviction that the time for social tech has come. And the more examples, the more aware politicians, funders, the public are of the potential social benefits of social tech, the more funding, the more support there will be. And we want to have these test cases where we can start showing technology really sort of out at scale. We're also looking for an innovative approach. Now, this might be new and emerging technology. It might be repurposing existing technology and applying it to a new space. But again, there's very much this idea that it's about something that's different, and more to the point, something that is better than what currently exists. So, your idea, the thing you're creating, is new, but it needs to be socially effective, and it needs to be better than what is currently out there, or at least have the potential once it's grown to be better. Fourth point is a working product or service. Now, this is quite an important point, and again, I think from past experience, when we have conversation questions, this is where we have a lot of them. And it's about what sort of stage of development you are at. Probably the easiest thing to say is that if you are at the stage of idea generation, idea creation, sort of initial kind of research, but you haven't actually built anything yet, you're probably at too early a stage. There's a very good social venture that we're working with in the mental health space at the moment. I think was funded by us probably on the third or fourth time they applied. And it was because actually we really loved the idea, but it was just a bit too early. But they kept coming back, we kept talking, and eventually they hit the right stage for us. So if you're at that kind of idea generation stage, you're probably a bit too early. What we're really looking for is that you have some kind of prototype or sort of initial product or service that you've been able to put into the hands of early sort of testers, early adopters, in order to carry out user research. And that's for two reasons. One is, we want to make sure that the idea that you have is technically feasible, but also that this thing about user research is absolutely critical. There may be a pressing social need, but you really need to understand the people that you are developing a product or service for. And what we found time and time again is that when you actually put something into the hands of people, they don't always use it in the way that you expect to use it. And something that you think is great, they don't get, or something that you think is going to be used in one way is used in another way. So ideally, when you're applying to us, we like to see some of the evidence. It doesn't have huge numbers of people, but some real depth around you've developed something and you've been able to use that thing, even if it's got a bit of a kind of a sort of sticky back plastic kind of prototype version to kind of generate some real user insight. And again, we're very interested in kind of sort of development. I mean, a lot of the grants we support in this phase, a lot of the budget is going towards that kind of user research and user development. At the other end of the spectrum, again, some of you know from our social tech program, this is probably where there's a little bit of a shift, and we're kind of considering ideas at a slightly later stage than we used to. I would still say, though, if you're kind of in the Series A space in terms of investment, or you have a product or service that is there, it's done, what you're really looking at is just kind of rolling it out and marketing, then you've got a healthy kind of year-on-year revenue, you're probably a bit too late for us. We're really looking at something that we kind of can help you kind of develop and improve. Hopefully that's helpful. There's more information on our website, but if you have any questions about whether you're at the right stage, do come back to us either this morning or via our email queries, which is hello@socialtechtrust.org. Next thing is around financial, user and social value. Sorry, I'm very conscious of the fact I've gone over 11 o'clock and I want to give you time to answer the questions. So we are very nearly finished. We just have a couple more slides to go. So on this thing of user social financial value, I won't explain this in detail now because it's a presentation all in our own right, but again, there's more details on our website. Also, if you go to our website and search for the term triple helix, you'll come up with a paper which is the triple helix of social innovation, which explains a lot more about what we mean by user, social and financial value. But very briefly, it's, again, you need to create something that people want and are able to use and have evidence of that. You need to create something that makes a social difference, it's socially transformative. but you also need to make something that generates financial value, something that will attract investment and commissioning or revenue so the thing can grow. And you need to be able to do all three at the same time, which is no mean feat. You also need to have the right team, and again, particularly as you kind of develop through the application process. I mean, initially we tend to focus in on your idea, but increasingly we'll be asking you questions about your team. We really want to make sure that you have the right team in place to deliver the idea that you have proposed. And finally, you need to be registered as a UK-based organisation for potential for impact, social impact within the UK. It's not a problem if you have impact more widely, but we're a UK-registered charity, so we are mainly looking at the beneficiaries of our work being in the UK. So you can have an international reach, but the focus of this work needs to be the United Kingdom. What we're offering, it's a £45,000 grant, typically over 9 to 12 months, with participation rights. There's more detail about participation rights on our website. This is, again, is one of the main changes for anybody who's familiar with our older social tech program. We appreciate it takes time to bring social tech ideas to scale, to realize their full potential. We kind of want to be there with that journey for the most successful ventures for as long as we can, and to be involved in supporting where we can. And participation rights gives us the option of continuing that support and investing in successful ventures and the qualifying rounds in the future. So again, it's quite technical, but if you want to find out more information, there's details under the FAQ section on the website. We'll provide technical assistance, so legal and business support, social impact reporting, marketing and communications. We'll provide you access to our support network, including our now very large body of alumni and investors. We'll provide personal, flexible approach from the Social Tech Trust team, and we will support you to build your case for further investment and support. Timeline and process. So the program opened last week. Deadline for application, stage 1 applications is Wednesday the 25th of July. We try and keep stage 1 format as light as we possibly can, so hopefully it won't take you too long to complete. There's also a 90-second video we ask you to do with this. It's mainly because some people like forms, some people would rather sit down and talk about what they do. We don't have the time, unfortunately, to just talk to everybody face to face, but the 90-second video is a chance for you to talk about the thing that you are doing. And again, it doesn't have to be very slick or polished. Actually, we'd much rather something was kind of fairly basic but spoke specifically to this application, rather than a very sort of highly polished corporate video that was one you'd sort of already done generally. So anyway, invitations to apply to stage 2 will be made on the 6th of August, with the deadline for stage 2 applications being on the 29th. We'll then work with our team to shortlist applications, and we'll be making our final decisions in October. We'll be looking to fund up to a maximum of 10 ventures. So just to say on that, it will be a competitive funding round. We don't know how many applications we'll get because it's the first time we've run this round in this program. But I believe I'm right in saying that we've already had 100 people log on to start submitting applications online. So it will be very competitive. And again, it's possible, particularly if you kind of go on to the later stages, it may be that you meet all the eligibility criteria and you have a really good idea, and we can't fund you just purely because out of the level of competition. So that's a kind of an apology in advance if that is the position that you get to. But anyway, I believe that is everything. I'm just going to pause for a minute to again just have a sip of water. I notice questions have been flashing up in the chat window. So in about a minute's time, I'll unmute myself and we'll start working through the questions. We're formally meant to finish at 11:30, but we've got a bit of scope to kind of slip slightly over that. So I'll try and answer as many of the questions as possible. it may be that there are some specific queries that we have to answer individually by email, but I'll try and indicate where I think that's most likely the case. So yeah, so I'll just be muting myself for about a minute now, and then we'll get on with the Q&A. Hello, this is Daniel back again. Sorry for that. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is, particularly the throat, is weak. So just taking a brief pause there. We're going to start with, I think it was a question that Dan Mack asked at 11:04, and work our way down. So we're formally meant to finish at 11:30, but we've got a little bit of scope to go over that. Try and answer as many of your questions as possible. But again, if you don't feel we've answered your question, or we perhaps run out of time, do feel free to email us at hello@socialtech.org, and we'll do our very best to answer your question. So Dan's question was, if you have a strong idea and committed marginalised beneficiary group, it would be no good applying unless we produce something tangible. I think just because of the level of competition, and because that's something that we found from experience we're quite big on, I think it sounds like you might be a little early, but it may well be worth looking at. There are some funders and supporters out there who might be the right stage. I mean, the one obvious example that springs to mind is Bethnal Green Ventures, who are very much at that sort of stage before us.
Comic relief. Do our stages.
Yeah, sorry, and depending on how you're constituted, comic relief is another one to have a look at as well. Next question is Megan. So I'm just going to take a moment to read your question, Megan. So question one, yes, I guess it is kind of both. I think, I mean, maybe this is where you can kind of use the video to your advantage, the 90-second pitch video, because it is used, and that maybe sort of gets you to sort of have the big vision, and then sort of the form to kind of have the sort of the if you like, the more kind of the deliverables during the grant period is one way of doing it. I think, yeah, it's useful to, I think, start with the vision, but if there's some kind of indication that, I guess what we need to know that there's something that you can do and deliver within that 12 months of sort of building to that long vision. But yeah, I appreciate it is a tough challenge because of the word count, but yeah, hopefully you'll be okay. Sorry. Would you come back at first round and ask clarifying questions? We might do. The reason I equivocate slightly is, again, because this is our first funding round, we're not quite sure what volume of applications we're going to get. I know with the last couple of rounds of the social tech program, which is what we were running previously, we were getting about 300. So we were having to sort of kind of, at stage one, we were having to be kind of quite tight. Having said that, we're not, our attitude is we're not trying to catch you out. So if there is something that's a bit kind of ambiguous, then I think our preference would be to try and find, rather than try and sort of trip people up on technicalities. That's not our ethos here. Rachel Madlab, I'd love to think that's your real surname, but let me just read your question. So we've built technology, working on AI VR applications, but haven't applied it to the social tech field yet. Again, possibly a bit too early, but might be worth looking at sort of BGV or something similar, maybe even say WAIRA, the Telefonica accelerator, as well. Might be worth a look. There are this sort of early stage and newer ones starting. People like Zinc, for example. I think it's the space that is developing, and they'll give you a bit more time and space to develop things. Again, it's just really from experience. Some really well-conceived, really well-researched and well-designed ideas that, when they've been sort of put into people's hands, just don't work. The actual behaviours of real people, their interests just don't match what you think they're going to be. So, and that's why we're so keen on having. Again, it doesn't have to be huge numbers of people. It might only be sort of a dozen people, but you've done some user testing with your actual beneficiaries. I just think that I'm almost tempted to say at this stage in the proceedings, you almost can't do too much user research. Bear in mind the limitations of time and money. I think it is crucial at this stage. John Woodford, can the use benefit the service be in Europe as well as the UK? Yeah, that's absolutely fine. But again, it's the beneficiary, they have to be UK beneficiaries. And that's where we sort of expect to see, particularly for this bit of funding, sort of the main body of impact. So, for example, when we talk about how many people you've reached, we'll be interested in your kind of international reach, but it's the UK figures that we would be looking at in terms of kind of sort of performance. Question from Rainer. Do we take equity and how much funding you offer? That's a really, really good question. You'll notice that one of the kind of key developments as we've emerged as an independent foundation is our partnership with SIB, who are so very key social investors in the UK, and that we do have partnerships with other social investors as well, and also the point I mentioned earlier about the participation right. So it's something that we'd definitely like to have the option on. It's something that's still in the fairly early stage of development of us working out how we actually best do it and how we best complement what is already out there. But yeah, it would tend to be sort of tailored to the specific ventures. And again, sort of, I would imagine most likely sort of looking at the kind of the stage following on from our grants, like kind of sort of pre-seed, seed stage. But it's early days yet, so I'm afraid I'm very flaky, not giving a very specific answer, but it's something that we are developing our thinking and practice upon. Question from Alice, in terms of budget, staff salaries. Okay, so a couple of questions there. Can we incorporate staff salaries? Yes, absolutely, as long as it's making clear how they're kind of contributing to the particular piece of work that we're funding. So yeah, we'd expect staff time to be a big cost, as long as it's kind of quite clear that we're not just sort of funding sort of ongoing kind of core work that's not directly related to the project. What level of tech expertise do you expect us to have internally, and can we also include some external expertise in our costings? Yes to both, and what I would say is we definitely have a stronger preference to in-house tech as much as is possible. And again, that's really born from our own past experience. So there's an example recently of a project that's actually in the end has gone okay, but a very established, very experienced health venture that has successfully sold into the NHS and the clinical commissioning groups. but experienced some very significant delays that almost derailed the whole project. And those delays all stemmed from the fact that they were relying on an external developer. And this was an external developer with whom they'd actually worked in the past and generally had a good relationship with. And that's something we've seen before. So having in-house tech allows a level of speed, allows some flexibility. Again, when you're looking at that kind of agile initiative development of your ideas of iteration, it really does help. We appreciate in some cases, that there are some specialist areas that as an early venture, it's difficult to get on board, so there may be some external, but at the very least, we'd want somebody internal to your team who understands tech development and can manage that process. But again, it's very competitive, so there is a definite preference towards organisations that have some in-house tech. Okay. Next question is Kamina. Will there be another opportunity to apply for fund this year if we're not in the current time? Yes, I think there will be. I mean, we're looking at we had a sort of brief pause as we've sort of changed and become an independent foundation, but the intention is to have a similar kind of frequency to where we were in the past with funding programs that were every six months. So yeah, there will be opportunities in the future to apply. Okay, question from Siobhan, in-house tech. Yeah, I think this kind of was similar to the earlier question I answered. I mean, it's good that you have a relationship from the past. Again, unfortunately, just our experience has been that even when that is the case, things can and still do go slightly awry. So I wouldn't say you're ineligible, but in a very competitive funding round, which I think this is probably going to be, if you're going against an application from somebody else where that organisation has in-house tech, you'll be in a weaker position. So I'd say, if there's any way that you can get some of that expertise in-house, that would definitely be better. I mean, another option is sometimes organisations actually apply, if there's a very close partnership, it's the tech partner that applies. As long as they have, again, that kind of social mission themselves, that's one way of addressing that particular situation. Pat Kane, on working products as service, we have a vision for something much more integrated than our current offer. I see, okay. That's an interesting question. Sorry, so the question was, so you've got 4 or 5 kind of existing platforms and that. Could we sort of apply so that we would sort of support you to kind of bring that all together in one platform? Possibly. I think what you need to be able to do there when you apply to us is demonstrate that what you're doing is going back to again this idea of sort of being transformative. And particularly at the moment, with sort of a lot of organisations who apply to us who have legacy systems that they've had for a long time that are not kind of, they're starting to kind of creak a bit. We generally wouldn't tend to fund that because it's sort of, I suppose we would review that as kind of sort of an incremental improvement on something that's existing rather than something that's transformative. If you can sort of argue that by bringing these together, you are not just kind of streamlining and improving an existing service, but you're actually creating something that will suddenly be able to kind of really sort of bring about, a new approach and a new way of doing things, rather than just a more efficient way of doing things, then that would be the sort of the argument that you need to be able to articulate. I'm awfully sorry if I mispronounced your name. Joytvir Gil. Again, I do apologise if I mispronounced your name. Okay, sorry, had to leave early. Thank you very much. Laurie, same question above. Do you have to be a constituted organisation in order to apply, or can it be a team of people at stage? You can apply as a sole trader, but if you're going to receive funding, then you have to be formally constituted as some form of organisation. So if you're not at that stage yet now, you could apply, but if you were to go through and be approved, then you would have to be formally constituted. Having said that, I said a lot of the organisations that we've funded apply to us as private limited companies, which can register fairly quickly, as long as, again, they have that sort of social element in their constitution. And again, there's some kind of flexibility there. So organisations that apply to us might kind of take that form because it's kind of very flexible and they can register very quickly. But over time, they maybe decide to become a charity or a social enterprise or co-op is their option if there's a team of you. So that there are different solutions. But yeah, over time you need to be formally constituted. Okay. So I'm just scrolling through.
Yeah, the next question's at 11:20. Do the users need to be from the community of need, or can the users be the people who provide support to these community members?
That's a really interesting question. I think my answer to that question. So that question is that yes, the users could be the people providing the support. I think that's fine. To give an example, but some work we're doing recently around sort of digital skills, again aiming at young people who are digitally excluded. And one of the findings that's come out from the report, again, the Digital Reach report, which is on our website, and I'd definitely recommend anybody who's interested in the whole digital skills area is well worth a read. One of the big things that came through from our partners from that was actually in terms of developing the digital skills and competency on people, one of the challenges is that the people who are around those young people who they trust, the youth workers, the outreach workers and friends, don't always have very good, strong digital skills and confidence themselves. So that may well be a way of addressing the problem.
Yeah, but I guess ultimately it comes down to who the end user is, because even if you've developed something and done user testing with the intermediary, like the organization or the local authority or whoever might be using the service, and they love it, but they still need to use the service with an end user, we would still need to understand how it will ultimately be used and if it would be used. So it could be a combination of both, just depending on who the end user of the product or service is.
So next question is Jonathan, who 11:20. Can the tech support an advisor or support worker better deliver their work to a vulnerable client? Again, I think that's a similar question to above. So yes, I mean, so some of the things we fund are directly in the hands of the end beneficiary, if that's the right term to use. Sometimes it's the person who's providing the support, as long as you can sort of show that chain, so that if you are supporting the worker, then you are able to demonstrate that has had a positive social impact on the end client. Okay. Question from Megan, 11:25. Does an existing website count as your prototype? If you're building a new solution based on feedback and demand from the website, but the website can't meet, we'd still have the prototype of the new solution by October, but only just. That's a really interesting question. I'm going to go for that one very slightly, Megan. So that might be one to email us for, maybe just a little bit more detail. Potentially, yes, in the sense that, I mean, this is probably quite a broad definition, but I did sort of hear somebody once argue that one of the best examples of an MVP was a Kickstarter page, and that was a comment that started fierce debate in the room at the time. But the idea that being, that actually sometimes something kind of fairly static can be a useful way of gauging interest and engagement. I guess my only question there would be that if this prototype that you're developing, if it's got kind of significant new functionality and a new way of operating, how confident you are that new functionality is actually something that people want and are able to use. But yeah, so it might be one that if you could email us and maybe look at it in a bit more detail. So the next one, it's an anonymous one, 1126. This is specific to our project. The product is currently being developed by an external company, but in-house. The co-founders are developers and will be taking over the product development when done. Yeah, no, I think that sounds yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, appreciate this stage. It's a tough ask, and there's different ways of doing it, but that sounds this would be eligible. When do we expect the next funding round to be? We don't have an exact date yet, but certainly the sequence that we were running under the old program was every 6 months. We don't have a date confirmed, so I'm afraid I can't say that it will definitely be a next date, but that is the cycle of grant making that we are looking at, hopefully looking at. Question from Kaz: how much can you spend on tech equipment? That's a good question. We appreciate that they're often, given the space that they're working in, that there does often have to be some tech hardware expenditure. I don't know if we have a specific limit in terms of an overall percentage. I think as long as it can be justified in the context of the project, that's fine. And again, a particularly common one is making sure that you've got the facilities you need to do the user testing. So sorry, we don't actually have a specific figure, but it is about what's appropriate. I mean, obviously, if something came in and it was 80% of the budget was for buying new tablets, then I think we might balk at that one. Again, I think typically most of the funding that we give tends to go towards people and tends to go towards product development and user research, and maybe to a certain extent also as part of that kind of sort of the marketing side of things and organizational development. But yeah, a hardware component is fine. Will there be a face-to-face meeting at stage 2? Not currently. It's an idea we have explored in the past around sort of having face-to-face pitches, either at stage 2 or at the very kind of the very final shortlisting stage. We've never managed a sort of a process that manages that satisfactorily. So what there will be a chance to do is come back and redo your pitch video. So when you've had some feedback from the stage 1 process, you can redo that video. And it's not quite the same, but hopefully that's some way towards sort of presenting your project and your proposal in a bit more of a human way.
Just to reiterate what Daniel said earlier, that we really want, we'd ideally like to put all the eligible applications through, but if there's an idea that we think is amazing, really has potential for transformative social impact, and there's something that we don't understand, we'll certainly get in touch.
I don't currently have any questions, or I can't see any questions that have come in after 11:32. This is a final call for any questions. If anybody has any, we'll try and answer them now. But otherwise, if I just give it one more minute, and then we'll sort of look to wrap up. So again, just as per the beginning of this morning, the slides will be made available via a slide share, and that will include all the notes as well. A lot of this information is on our FAQs. One of the things we'll be doing is taking all these questions that you've given us today. We're doing a couple of live events as well, and we'll be kind of collating all the questions that everybody's asking. And if there's any kind of ones that are coming up a lot, then we'll kind of use those to kind of go back and improve the FAQ section on our website. And we've done an audio recording this morning of a presentation, and we'll look to try and share that with people as well. And I think that's it. So yeah, just to say really, sorry, our question, can we send project-specific questions to the generic email address? Yes, the hello at address, that's absolutely fine, yes, please do. And we'll try and pick those up as quick as we can. So again, just to say thank you very much. I know it can be a hard slog, especially when you have to listen to somebody like me gassing on for an hour or so. So thank you for your forbearance and your patience. Again, just to say, we're tremendously excited by the interest that's been shown in this funding round. Really excited to see the ideas that are coming through. Again, we believe passionately that the social potential of digital technology for social tech is huge, and it's the ideas that come from creative and socially motivated people such as yourselves that will make that vision a reality. So thank you all very much for your time, and I'll be muting now and closing the meeting in about 1 minute.